yung mga resource person natin sa DepEd. Now, before we start the interpolation, maybe we can ask the COMSEC to administer the oath to Usec Mercado. COMSEC?
Ms. Gloria Mamil Mercado, please stand up and raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in this committee?
I will.
So, to help you, thank you, Your Honor. The oath has been administered.
Okay, I understand, ma'am, Usec, that you have a statement. Meron po kayong statement na sasabihin. You are now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I start, I just want to say that this is a very difficult thing to do, and I apologize to my children who didn't like me to join this this session, and also my colleagues who are my friends, but I have to read my statement. My name is Gloria Humamil Mercado, and I have dedicated over 40 years to public service in the government of the Philippines. In my last year with government, I served as the Undersecretary for Human Resource and Organizational Development of the Department of Education. I was appointed as DepEd Undersecretary by President Marcos, as recommended by Vice President Sara in 2022, and I assumed office in August of 2022 in February 2022. In February 2023, I was designated as the head of the procuring entity of DepEd. As one of the signatories of DepEd's checking account, alongside Undersecretary for Finance, Annalyn Sevilla, I signed checks related to all funds, and recall that some of the checks that I signed amounted to 37,500,000 pesos. Between February 2023 to September 2023, I received a total of 9 envelopes labeled Hope, my concurrent position in DepEd during that time. These envelopes were handed to me mostly by Assistant Secretary Sunshine Fajardo, which she says came directly from Vice President Duterte. What she would typically say as she hands the envelope: it would appear that I received this envelope by virtue of my office as Hope. Attorney Fajardo is the wife of Edward Fajardo, who is the Special Disbursement Officer. Although the exact date evades recollection, sometimes during the course of my tenure with DepEd, a member of my staff informed me that an inquiry was made by one of our officers in the field that Mr. Fajardo had made inquiries about the bank accounts of several individuals, and if divulging such information to him was permitted. My office confirmed that it was upon the instruction of the Office of the Secretary. Evidently, it would appear that regional directors and other employees on the field would also receive sums on top of the regular salaries. Sometimes in October 2023, as the likelihood of a bidding failure for DepEd computerization have become apparent, I was approached by Attorney Monsayak, and he suggested in the presence of other officials who was with me that the bidders should just discuss among themselves. Mag-usap-usap na lang para hindi masayang yung pera ng 2023. I firmly asserted that the procurement must be implemented and conducted in strict adherence with the rules. Sometimes in the 3rd or 4th week of October, I was summoned by Zuleika Lopez, the Chief of Staff of the Vice President and Undersecretary of the OBP. I was informed that I should tender my resignation effective that day. I refused to resign, and I insisted on departing from service through voluntary retirement. The timing of my meeting with Ms. Zuleika struck me as more than coincidental. It gave me the impression that my candid responses was the real reason behind the push to relieve me of my office. It was as if I had become an unwelcome obstacle, despite simply doing my job as Hope and Undersecretary of Human Resource of DepEd. Prior to my meeting with Ms. Zuleika, there were other undersecretaries and assistant secretaries who were summoned also, and were also summoned, all of the same purpose of informing them that they should tender their resignation effective on the same day. I signed my affidavit.
Can we request for the copy of the affidavit, Mr. Chair?
Comsec, could you please get, or, yes, pwede po ba makahingi kami ng affidavit? Thank you po, ma'am, sa inyong statement.
Mr. Chairman?
I think
Yes,
can
Congressman Dan Fernandez, with the indulgence of Congresswoman Jinky Luistro.
Yeah, we don't have a copy yet of the affidavit, but I heard the name of Attorney Monsayak, and a while ago, Congressman Chairman Caraps mentioned his name as the former official of the OBP. Can we invite also, if
Attorney Monsayak,
yeah.
could you please...
can we invite
take
him
his-
over? Because your name was mentioned in the affidavit of Miss what's your name, ma'am?
Mr. Chair, I'm Dr. Mercado.
Dr. Mercado. Your name is Gloria.
Yes.
Gloria Mercado. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
Yes, may I request the COMSEC to please reproduce the affidavit of Usec Mercado
Mr.
and
Chair.
furnish all the members of the committee with a copy. Yes, Congressman Rodriguez.
Mr. Chair, in the same line of the administrative matter raised by Honorable Fernandez, I believe another USEC is here also present with us, the Attorney Poa, and he was also mentioned in the affidavit. Perhaps we may ask him to join us here in the...
Yes, Attorney Poa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You are invited. Please take a seat. COMSEC, po pwedeng paki-assist po si Attorney...
Baka ayaw tumabini.
Ay, sir, siguro pwedeng pakiwalay po kayo. Baka magkalabitan po kayo. Baka pwede po maghiwalay po kayo para at least para maiwasan po natin yung lambingan dito. Paghiwalay na lang po natin. Yes. Pwede pong, sir, pwede pong atras, hindi. Doon din po si Monsayak. Paki-atras, hindi. Atras na lang po yung mga dito. Siguro sa gitna na lang po si Attorney Monsayak. Pwede po bang makipagpalit sa gitna?
Mr. Chair, while we're attending to the arrangements and physical arrangements of the committee, can I request for a 5-minute suspension?
5-minute suspension is declared by the Chair.
As I read the affidavit, medyo mabibigat po itong mga accusations that was mentioned by Miss Gloria Jumamil Mercado. But while we are in break, I tried trying to call my mga contacts about this person, si Gloria Jumamil Mercado. If I may be allowed to just establish some qualifications that you have. Just answer us truthfully, Miss Gloria Jumamil Mercado. Ano po ba ang pinagmulan po ninyo? You are in the public service for 40 years. But ano po yung mga foundation that you can relay to this committee as your established personality?
Thank you, Chair, for that question.
Yes, Usec Mercado, you are recognized.
I was, as I mentioned, I'm already 40 years in government. I was pulled out from my fourth-year college. I was 19 years old when I worked with then Minister Vicente Paterno as Masikap. I think one of the famous Masikap here is also Congressman from Cagayan de Oro. So I started working in Mindanao as a field worker, and I rose the rank up to an assistant secretary on mostly on merit. And then I had my PhD in Mainland China Studies. So when I got back, I was asked by Secretary Bert Gonzales to join him in the National Security Council, and that's where I was totally grounded on social democracy and being able to work well with the countryside and the other sectors.
So in other words, Mr. Chairman, your foundation of your having served for 40 years in the public service is Social Democrats.
Yes po, sir.
Mr. Chairman, kasi yung pong mga Social Democrats, yung pong equality, no? Like Sweden, Norway, and the different part of this world adhere to this social democracy, which establishes a fairness and equal rights for every citizen of their country. And I heard that, correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Gloria, were you tapped on the Yolanda rehabilitation on the capacity building of the different LGUs by former Senator Ping Lacson?
Yes po, sir.
Bakit po kayo tinap ni Senator Ping Lacson? What is your credibility and your capacity to lead yung sa Yolanda rehabilitation?
I was actually wearing two hats, Mr. Chair. The first one is I was the commander of the Naval Forces Reserve, Eastern Visayas. I'm a Commodore po of the Philippine Navy Reserve.
So reservist po kayo ng
Yes
ng
po,
Navy?
sir. Yes, sir. And second is that I was the Senior Vice President and Dean of the Development Academy of the Philippines. And we were asked by Senator Ping Lacson, of then Presidential Advisor for the Yolanda Rehabilitation, to develop a course for the 179 municipalities and towns that were affected by which we call the Yolanda Corridor. So we customized a program for them, and they didn't come up with a thesis. It's a master's degree. What they came out, each of the planner will come out with a new town plan that is on a build better framework.
So in other words, Madam Chair, Mr. Chair pala, and Madam Gloria, yung buong trabaho po ninyo para maintindihan po ng in a layman's term, no, yung naging trabaho nyo as Senior Vice President po ba kayo ng Development Academy of the Philippines?
Yes po.
If I may, no, ito po bang trabaho nyo dito, kung ilalagay po natin para mas maintindihan natin, kayo po yung nagtatrain para dun sa mga career executive. Am I correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
So in other words, your capacity as one of the pillars of the Development Academy of the Philippines is to give ammunition to those affected doon sa Yolanda strategy. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Were you also a pioneer nung tinatawag natin sa Development Security Program for the Command and General Staff ng College ng Armed Forces of the Philippines?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Were you a part of it?
Kasi as also a reservist po, I realized that yung nag-aaral sa Command and General Staff College, they only get a certificate of a Command and General Staff course. So naisip namin sa DAP is to twin a program. We expanded the training so that pag-graduate nila sa Command and General Staff College, hindi lamang sila certified of the Command and General Staff course, meron din silang Masters in Public Management, Major in Development and Security. Ang tinuturo po namin, Mr. Chair, is for the armed forces to be able to work properly in the ground, especially with the NGOs and the local government units.
Okay. Aside from that, somebody texted me as well. They saw you on the live stream of the House of Representatives, and they're telling me that you are a senior fellow of the Philippine Public Safety College, wherein I'm going to graduate on Friday.
Yes, sir.
Are you a dean of the PPSC?
No, sir. We helped develop the program, so I chaired the advisory committee.
So you created the program that we are
Yes,
being
sir.
taught to us.
Yes, Mr.
Kasi
Chair.
1 year na po akong nagmamasteral sa
Public
PPSC,
safety.
sa public safety, and I'm quite surprised that you are a former senior fellow of the PPSC. And with that, Mr. Chairman, no, I was quite surprised to find out that actually I'm not surprised anymore. A while ago when I was hearing your testimony on your affidavit, medyo nagiging questionable pa sa akin yung mga dineklara nyo dito. But now that I found out all of this qualification that was given to me by my friend who have watched you testifying on this committee, now I must agree that you really have a ball, no? Ano kayo talaga? You were established on your foundation on the true public service that are being given by you. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will not be furthering my query anymore because I believe that this person who will be testifying to us have this high credibility. Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I will be the next interpellator. Ma'am, kanina po binanggit po ninyo dito na sa inyong affidavit. Ito po ba yung affidavit na binabanggit po ninyo, na pirmado po ninyo? Dated 25th of September 2024?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Ito po yung pirma ninyo na nakalagay po sa taas ng Gloria Humamil Mercado. Pirma po ba ninyo ito?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So, alam naman po ninyo. At ito po ay under oath. So,
Yes,
ibig
Mr.
sabihin po nito, at kanina rin po, kayo po ay nag-take ng oath. So, lahat po ng sasabihin ninyo po dito ay dapat pawang katotohanan lamang. Tama po ba?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Kanina po binanggit po ninyo dito na kayo po ay by the way, ano po yung inyong educational background? Pwede po ba malaman namin?
I have a bachelor's in economics and a master's in National Security Administration.
National Security
And a
Administration.
PhD po in Chinese Studies.
And PhD.
In Chinese Studies.
Chinese Studies. Okay. Sabi po ninyo dito kanina, sa inyong number 2 affidavit, I was appointed as DepEd Undersecretary by President Ferdinand Romualdez as recommended by Vice President Sara Duterte in 2022. Bakit po paano po ninyo nakilala si VP Sara? At bakit kayo po ang napili niya na i-recommenda bilang Undersecretary ng DepEd?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair. We actually went through a selection process. There was an advertisement by the CES board that the Department of Education is going to recruit undersecretaries, assistant secretaries. So we saw that ad. I was currently working with the Office of the Presidential Advisor for streamlining government processes. And so we applied, we were interviewed, and then we received communication that we passed the interview and the process, the selection process, and that we are to assume at a specific date.
Okay. So, ibig sabihin po, prior to your appointment as Undersecretary, hindi pa po nyo kilala si Vice President Sara Duterte. Tama po ba?
Kilala naman po,
kilala na
Your
po
Honor,
ninyo.
kasi she studied at the Development Academy of the Philippines where I
Okay.
was the Dean and the Senior Vice President. She was our graduate student.
So, din po kayo sa DAP.
Yes po, sir.
Ano
Your Honor.
ano pong course ang kung saan po kayo din?
Sir, it's just one.
So, yung buong DAP kayo po yung ano?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Development
It's
Academy,
the
tama
Graduate
po ba?
School of Public and Development Management.
Okay. So, dito po ninyo nakilala si VP Sara.
Yes po. Yes, Your Honor. And
Okay.
I was actually her advisor of her thesis for her master's degree.
Okay. So yung recommendation po niya, kayo po ay naging Undersecretary for Human Resources and Organizational Development. Tama po ba?
Yes, yes, Chair.
Okay. So ilan po ba ang USEC ng DepEd?
We were 9 po.
Siyam po. Ano-ano po yung mga USEC na to?
Usec for finance, admin,
Finance,
infrastructure.
Admin.
Infrastructure?
Infra?
Huh? Yeah. We were admin, finance, curriculum, human resource and organizational development.
Pakilakasan po, pakilakas.
Human resource and organizational development, operations, planning, procurement, and
And
the
procurement.
chief of staff. And
May
the-
USEC for procurement po.
Sir, the Usec for procurement was a product of an organizational review which we did when we came into into DepEd.
Okay. So, as USEC for Human Resources and Organizational Development, kayo rin po ay na-designate as head ng procuring entity.
Only in 2023, sir. February 2023.
So, dalawa po yung function ninyo. USEC po kayo ng human resources, and at the same time, kayo rin po ang head ng procuring entity. Tama po ba?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Bakit hindi po yung Usec for procurement ang head ng procuring entity or ng HOPE? Bakit po yung sa human resources po? Kayo po, yung opisina po ninyo, ang pagkakaalam ko sa human resources, kayo po yung sa mga recruitment ng tao, tama po ba?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yun po yung trabaho ninyo, tama po ba?
Ang trabaho ko po, Mr. Chair, is human resource. Then I have the National Educators Academy of the Philippines and the Teachers Excellence Council.
Tama po.
There's 1.1
So in short
billion.
po, yung trabaho ninyo has nothing to do with procurement.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, Mr.
So ang
Chair.
tanong ko po, bakit po kayo ang naging head ng procuring entity? Bakit kayo po ang napili?
I think it's a trust.
It's a trust. So, kasi pwede naman yung finance, pwede naman po yung admin, tama po ba? Okay. So it's a trust. Okay, thank you po. So kanina po, binanggit po ninyo dito sa inyong paragraph 3 ng affidavit ninyo, sabi nyo, as one of the signatories of DepEd checking account, alongside Usec, Annalyn Sevilla, I signed check related to the department's confidential fund and recall that each one amounted to 37,500,000. So ito pong 37,500,000, ilang beses po kayong nagpirma ng cheque in connection dito sa 37,000? Ilang 37,500,000 pong cheque ang napirmahan po ninyo? Habang HOPE po kayo.
Mr. Chair, I'm not very sure if it's 2 or 3.
Okay.
It should be around that.
2 or 3. So more or less, mga nasa 54 million ang napirmahan po ninyo. Tama po?
Yeah, but separate checks.
Apo, dalawang check na worth 37 times 74. Apo. Now, sabi po ninyo sa paragraph 4, between February 2023 to September 2023, I received a total of 9 envelopes labeled HOPE. My current position in DepEd during that time.
Concurrent.
Ano po? Tama po ba?
Concurrent position.
Yes.
Your Honor.
So tama po ba itong sinabi ninyo?
Yes,
Okay.
Mr.
Ano po
Chair.
yung laman nitong siyam na envelope na to?
It's 50,000 pesos.
50,000. So 50,000 times 9. So for 9 months, ilang buwan po kayong naging HOPE? 9 months?
May I explain that?
Yes, please.
I've been receiving that envelope, but I never opened it while I was at DepEd. Some of my friends, when I left, they saw that those envelopes still intact, not opened. So I actually didn't know how much money there was in each of the envelope.
But how did you know na pera po ang
When I
laman nun?
retired already, I was asking for an exit call so I could
You were
return
asking for?
an exit call when I was leaving already DepEd because I wanted to return those envelopes,
Okay.
but I wasn't able to have that exit call. I wasn't able to return, but so I sought some advice, and they just advised me to donate it to a non-government organization, which I did. And that's the only time that I opened those envelopes in front of the people that I was donating it. And it was 50,000 per envelope.
So 50,000 times 9.
It's 450 po. And
450.
They issued me a receipt for that 450.
Okay. Sino po nag-issue ng receipt?
The one who, it's an
The one
it's
na...
an NGO that I
Okay, so
donated
yung
the money.
pinag-donate po ninyo.
Yes.
Do you have that receipt?
Yes, sir.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Your-
Can we
yes,
have a
Mr.
copy
Chair.
of the receipt,
Yes,
ma'am?
Mr. Chair.
Thank you po. So, buwan-buwan po, nakakatanggap po kayo ng 50,000 at sinasabi po netong si Assistant Secretary Sunshine Fajarda. Sabi po ninyo sa kanya, itong envelope na to ay galing po from the Office of Vice President Sara Duterte o galing kay BP. So, ano po ba ang trabaho nito ni Assistant Secretary Sunshine Fajarda?
She used to be the head executive assistant,
Heya.
And then, yes, and then she became an assistant secretary.
Okay. At ang asawa po niya, sabi po ninyo dito, si Edward Fajarda, siya naman po ang Special Disbursement Officer. Tama po ba?
Yes.
Okay. So, ibig sabihin po, itong mag-asawa po, si Sunshine Fajarda at si Edward Fajarda, ay very close po talaga sa Vice President. Tama po ba? Masasabi po ba ninyo na very close sila?
I couldn't say that po.
Pero the fact na si Sunshine Fajarda ay Heya, so siya po yung laging kasama. Tama po ba?
If you're the Heya, you're usually the one who has trust and confidence from the
Yes,
president.
trust and confidence. So ang ano po ba yung mga trabaho kadalasan ng Heya?
It's really doing the
Parang chief of staff din po yan
Yes.
Tama po ba? So pag dumating na si Heya at may sinabi pong instruction sa inyo, parang ang kausap na rin po ninyo yung boss. Tama po ba?
yes,
So,
Mr.
okay.
Chair.
So ito po bang so tuwing nagpupunta po siya sa inyo, sabi ninyo 9 months. Sunod-sunod nagbibigay po siya ng envelope na may laman pong 50,000. Tuwing nagpupunta po siya sa inyo, sinasabi po niya galing kay VP. Tama po ba?
Kami po yung umaakyat sa
Umakyat kayo.
Office of the Secretary.
Saan po kayo umakyat? Saang office po?
Sa Office of the Secretary. Kasi that's where she holds office.
Sa office ni Assistant Secretary Fajarda.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Chair.
By the way, ito po bang opisina po niya? Gaano po ito kalayo sa opisina ni BP Sara?
The same...
Same office. So, ibig sabihin, isang opisina lang po silang dalawa. Okay. Pero kasi normally po, yung Usec ang nagpapatawag ng ASEC eh. Tama po ba? Tama po ba? Kasi mas mataas po yung Usec kaysa sa ASEC eh. But this time, yung ASEC po ang nagpapatawag sa Usec. Tama po ba?
Yes, Chair.
Okay. So, yun po eh hindi naman normal kasi normally talaga ang boss ng ASEC, yung Usec. Tama po ba? Okay. So, the fact na kayo po ay pinatatawag ng ASEC, ibig sabihin po talaga, talagang very close. At talagang parang very close siya sa secretary. Tama po ba? Parang alter ego po siya. Okay. Yung, pakidescribe nyo nga yung opisina ng Office of the Vice President at saka ito pong opisina ni Assistant Secretary Sunshine Fajarda. Ano po ba yan? Kunyari, halimbawa, ito po, isang opisina to. Meron lang po ba siya doong table o meron din siyang sariling opisina doon?
May sarili siyang...
May sariling opisina. So, para siyang chief of staff doon. Okay. Pero lahat yan under ng Office of the Secretary. Kasi normally po, ang mga may opisina lang po doon, Usec. Tama po ba? Ang mga Usec po, may kanya-kanyang opisina. Tama po ba?
Sa baba po.
Sa baba. Yung mga ASEC po, may mga opisina rin po ba?
Yes, Your...
Saan
yes,
po? Sa baba rin.
Naka-scattered kasi madami.
Naka-scattered. So, ibig sabihin, on top dun sa opisina niya as ASEC, meron din siyang opisina sa loob ng opisina ng secretary as Heya.
No po, Chair.
Wala.
Yun lang yung office niya.
Ayun lang ang office niya.
Oo.
So, ibig sabihin
Kasama
talaga...
din niya yung USEC, yung Chief of Staff.
Okay.
Ang nag-office doon, Chief of Staff at saka yung ASEC.
Dun sa loob ng opisina ng secretary. Okay.
Yes.
So, yun lang po. Salamat po. Yes, with the indulgence of Congresswoman Luistro, the Chair would like to recognize Congressman J. Konghun.
In connection lang po, ma'am, doon sa tanong ni Chair. Tanong ko lang po, ma'am, nung naramdaman niyo po na may nag-aabot po sa inyo na sobre, buwan-buwan, ano po ang pakiramdam niyo? Bakit hindi niyo po binuksan?
I must admit that I was uncomfortable with those envelopes, but parang ang hirap din kasi I'm not sure if others are receiving. Parang ang hirap din I didn't know if others are receiving. I cannot say. So ang ginawa ko na lang is I had this pouch that iniiwan ko lang sa office. Nilalagay ko lang doon yung mga binibigay sa akin na pera.
Sa pakiramdam po ninyo, para po saan yun?
Ang feeling ko is she has naman resources to give to she has probably personal resources that she can share to her people. And I'm not really, ayoko mag-speculate, but the only thing I could say is I wasn't comfortable with it.
Hindi po ba kayo nagtataka? Kayo po yung head ng HOPE, ng procuring entity, tapos may natatanggap po kayo na buwan ng 50,000?
As I mentioned, it is uncomfortable, and that's precisely the reason why I wasn't opening it at all. I was just putting it in one pouch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The Chair,
Mr.
would
Chair,
like to recognize Congresswoman Luistro.
thank you. My question is addressed to Ma'am Mercado. Ma'am, do you confirm when you were still in DepEd, you were occupying concurrently Usec for HR and HOPE?
Yes.
Sabay po yun. When were you appointed as Undersecretary for Human Resources and Organizational Development?
We were all appointed together by the President July, but I only assume...
Can you please state that the year?
July 2022 po.
Okay.
But I only assumed office in August 15, 2022 because I was still winding up my work with another office.
So you would agree with me if I say that you were appointed as USEC for HR July 22, but you assumed the position August 15, 2022?
Yes,
With
Mr.
respect to
Chair.
your appointment as head of procuring entity, kailan po kayo na-appoint?
That's February 2023.
February 2023. Let's go back to your appointment as USEC for HR. From August 15, 2022, kayo po ba ay pinaakyat din ni Usec Sunshine to receive this envelope which you refused to open?
Not on 2020. I don't recall 2022. We have we have gifts on December, but I don't recall a monthly thing before that.
In other words, from August 15, 2022, that is the date of your appointment as USEC for HR, until before February 2023, which is your appointment as head of procuring entity. You are not receiving any envelope from Usec Sunshine.
No.
And you will confirm that this envelope started only when you were appointed as head of procuring entity.
It's actually not very clear to me anymore, but I recall we also received some amounts in 2022, but it's very vague to me anymore. So, and then I don't have the envelope. So, parang it wasn't...
So how do you receive those amounts which are vague, not regular, if there are no envelopes?
No, I think it's only once. It's like a Christmas bonus. Pero siguro hindi siya naka-envelope kasi I didn't keep it.
Tama po bang sabihin, ma'am, na yun pong regular monthly envelope which you later on found out contains 50,000 per envelope ay nag-umpisa lamang nung kayo na-appoint as head of procuring entity?
As far I'm still keeping those envelopes, so I would like to say yes.
Yes, because it is very clear from your affidavit, no? This envelope started in February and ended in September of 2023. And earlier you said kayo po'y na-appoint bilang HOPE noong February 2023. And prior to that, since your appointment in August 15, 2022, wala kayong nare-recall regular envelope which you were receiving from Usec Sunshine. Can you please enlighten us? What is with HOPE? Bakit doon lang po nag-umpisa itong envelope na ito upon your appointment as head of procuring entity?
It's a very difficult task, especially for someone who has not tried to be one before. Parang it's an area that I really evaded all my entire government life. But I needed... There's just too many already pending procurement at that time. So when I was asked if I could be designated as the HOPE, I first refer them to other people who are seasoned in procurement, like sina Usec Rebsi, but Usec Rebsi was already too preoccupied with operations. So I finally accepted the position, and it was difficult because I had to study the procurement law, and I was given I had a lawyer and someone who's only a retiree to review the documents with me when we signed the contracts. And I had commitment from when I accepted the post. I made it a family decision, you know. Like among the execom, I asked our legal before Usec Brady and ASIC Amanda Nograles, that everything that I signed has to be thoroughly reviewed by legal. And so I had that commitment of support from everyone in the execom, and so I accepted the post.
In brief, ma'am, can you please enlighten us? Why do you say na mahirap, difficult ang position ng Hope?
Because you have to look through all the documents, and it's like
Which documents, ma'am?
everything that goes through the bidding process. I am not part of the bidding process itself, but on the time that I was appointed, I was the one tasked to form the structure of who's chair for BAC 1, BAC 2. So I spoke to all the people which I know I will have comfort to chair specific committees at specific BAC. But the process of bidding, I'm not part of it, because you have to maintain you have to make sure that you're not enmeshed with the process itself, but you're just reviewing to make sure that the Vice President Secretary is protected with everything that I signed, because it's a delegated function. She's supposed to be the Hope.
In other words, ma'am, you're the person who check all the documents coming from BAC before the Vice President signs or approves.
No, I signed. Because
You signed for the...
I have to sign because I'm the one, the Hope signs. It's delegated to me already.
And you will agree with me if I would say na you consider it difficult because it concerns matter about procurement and bidding,
Yes.
where there are a lot of issues surrounding, sometimes
And it's just,
issues about
many.
bribery and corruption. You agree with me?
yes,
And what do you think is the reason kung bakit yung envelope nag-start lang during your appointment as Hope?
I think
Bakit
it's-
po walang envelope nung HR pa lang kayo? Tapos biglang nagka-envelope nung naging Hope kayo?
I think it's like an allowance maybe for an extra work, because sometimes I have to stay until midnight to look at the documents when sometimes I have
If
one.
that is just an allowance, ma'am, then the rest of the officials of the DepEd should be receiving also their respective envelopes. Do you think so? Don't you think so, ma'am? If that is just an allowance, then the rest of the officers of DepEd should have their own envelopes as well.
Mr. Chair, that's precisely the reason why I did not open any of it, because
I
that
understand.
was very uncomfortable on
I
my
understand. And that leads me to the next question, ma'am. Why were you so uncomfortable with the envelope when you believe that that is just an allowance?
part. Because, Ma'am, I'm 40 years. Mr. Chair, I'm 40 years in government. The only time I have an ombudsman case is when I advised my principal not to sign an importation. When I was the deputy cabinet secretary, and I advised my principal not to sign an importation because there was no rice crisis. That's my only ombudsman. I have to protect that name. Self-made po kami. I come from Samar. I was a scholar since I was grade 1 until I took my PhD. So I have all reasons to protect my name, Your Honor. And I'm in the home stretch of my career, and then I'm being thrown into that position, which I have no control because I'm only studying it. So that's my...
Ma'am, I wish to remind you of the terminologies which you mentioned already, with all due respect po sa inyo, no? Because I want to elicit this information from you. Kanina po sabi nyo, the position, the job of Hope is very difficult. Do you confirm?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And you did not open the envelope because you feel so uncomfortable. Do you confirm?
Yes.
And then recently you made mention na It was only once that I had this case with the ombudsman. Do you confirm?
Yes, ma'am.
And you also made mention that you wish to protect yourself. Do you confirm?
Yes.
And the
Mr.
reason,
Chair.
ma'am, is because you believe that that envelope is a bribe. Do you agree with me? Because
I'm-
otherwise, you will not appreciate the job as difficult. You will not uncomfortable opening what you believe is allowance. You will not be thinking about the ombudsman case. You will not be thinking about protecting yourself. The reason why you are considering all these concerns is because you believe that the envelope is a bribe. Do you agree? Yes or no, ma'am?
It's kind of harsh word to use, bribe, because if
Or should I say, it is a means to influence your decision being the hope?
It could be.
You said yes to that? You said it could be.
Could be.
I wish to manifest, Mr. Chair, that on the story, on the narration of the resource speaker about this envelope she received and she refused to open until the same is donated from February 2023 to September 2023 is a means actually to influence the decision of our resource speaker being the one who approved all the decision of the BAC in behalf of the DepEd Secretary. Tama po ba, ma'am?
There was only one instance that I could recall na but there was no one spoke to me about there was an instance where I tried to let a bidding lapse, but I ended up signing it because there was a protest. I'm not comfortable discussing it.
But I wish to state for the record, Mr. Chair, that with the narration of our resource speaker, she earlier manifested that she believes that those envelopes are means to influence her decision as hope. Ma'am, I wish to invite your attention to paragraph 6. You mentioned in this paragraph that a certain attorney Reynold Monsayak suggested in the presence of 3 DepEd officials na pag-usapan na lang ang 2022 budget para hindi masayang. However, you firmly asserted that the procurement must be implemented and conducted in strict adherence with the rules. Do you confirm this?
Yes.
Can you please enlighten us? Sino po yung ibang DepEd officials present during this incident?
Actually, it was one director and 2 consultants.
Can you please state the names?
The director was Director Resty Osias, and the consultants was Juna Soriano and Ferdinand. Forgot the family name.
Where did this meeting happen, ma'am? Kanino
was-
pong opisina nangyari to?
It was not in DepEd. I was having lunch. There was a training ongoing in one hotel. I don't recall anymore whether it's Linden or Discovery Suites, but it's just in Ortigas area. And I was having lunch with these people, and we were discussing a project. And then that's when I was approached.
Does that project have something to do with the 2022 continuing
no,
fund?
it was different.
It was different.
Yeah.
But that lunch was shared with these 3 other DepEd officials along with Attorney Monsayak.
No, Attorney Monsayak was not part of the lunch. I think he probably came out from the training, and then that's when he joined us.
He joined you, and then to whom did he direct what he said na pag-usapan na lang natin yung 2022 para hindi masayang? Kanino po ba niya sinasabi ito? Sa inyo o dun sa 3 DepEd officials pa?
It could be to me and the director, because Director Resty was also a member of the BAC.
How about the two others? Are they members of the BAC also?
No, they're not, because the consultants we were discussing a DepEd Guru program. It's an app that we were discussing.
And can you enlighten us? Ano po bang naging reaksyon nung kasama nating director? Her name is Director
Ucias.
Osias.
Well, I think his reaction was that parang, ba't niya sinabi yun, we're not, may other people there.
I see.
Parang ganon.
Because those two other consultants are not part of
Yes.
the BAC.
Yes.
And did she accede to what Attorney Monsayak said?
No. He's a very strict director as far as procurement.
She did
is-
not accede.
He
Did not accede.
Yes.
And kayo po, you asserted that the procurement must be implemented and conducted in accordance with the law. You said that.
Yes po.
And Attorney Monsayak heard that.
Yes po.
And after this incident, ma'am, what happened?
I left na. I left already.
You left. But you recall that after some time, kayo po ay kinausap na ni Ms. Zulaika, ni Attorney Lopez, the Chief of Staff of Vice President Sara. Please enlighten us. What happened during that conversation?
Parang a day, mga afternoon, I got a text. When I got a text, it was a familiar text because these were the same texts that is sent to those who are asked to leave as well. So when I saw it, I prepared what I should tell them and tell her. And I prepared that I'm not resigning, but I'm retiring because I'm already at age level where I could retire properly. And so when I went there, I knew what the issue would be because the kind of text that I received was the same text that was received by Chris Arnoco, Usec Chris Arnoco, and the others.
Who is Chris Arnolfo, ma'am?
He's an Usec also that was asked to resign.
He was asked to resign for what reason, if you're aware?
No, I'm not aware.
You are not aware?
I just get to know being an HR, and then I was their nanay-nanayan in DepEd. So I get to be their sounding board and their apprehensions because they're young people, their career. So yun yung situation. And so when I arrived at the OBP's office in Mandaluyong, sinabi na there's this issue of a teacher that is in my office and some other issues. So kinat ko na lang si Usec Zulaika, sabi ko, in my 40 years in government, I knew that I work on trust. So if the principal doesn't trust me anymore, then you don't have to find reason for me to go. So I'm ready to resign, to retire. Here are the things that I need to do for retirement. I need to say goodbye properly to the institution that I serve well.
For the record, ma'am, did you resign or did you retire?
I'm being asked to resign. I did not. I retired. I
You
applied
retired.
for retirement.
So when did you retire?
Effective November 1.
So that is 1 month
No.
from the supposed date when you're supposed to retire?
They don't like 1 month. I was actually trying to ask for December 30, but they wanted it on that day that they spoke to me.
This is 4th week of October when Attorney
I
Zulueta
think
talked to you.
I'm not very sure anymore.
3rd week of October. They want you to resign on that date?
On that very day.
On that very date. But you said,
I'm not going to resign because I have to honor my 40 years in government, you know. What would I do after resigning?
and how did you feel when on the
Oh.
3rd week of October you're being asked to resign?
I was so devastated because I couldn't find a reason why I will have to go, you know.
What were you thinking during that time? Can you please share with us your thoughts? Ano pong iniisip nyo during that time when after 40 years of being in DepEd, dedicating all your life and career in DepEd, suddenly there is Attorney Zulueta asking you to resign right then and there?
I was very sad. But it wasn't a surprise, Mr. Chair, because there were 6 people before me that went through that process. So I wasn't surprised. So what I did the night before when I got the text, I already prepared myself. But I'm human and I worked very well for the past year. So I was really very devastated with what they did to me. And that's also the reason why I refused to initially to face this panel, because I said I'm so wounded as a bureaucrat. So baka so I just didn't. Siguro what was hurting is that when I left, they were trying to marami kasing press that was running after me and asking why I left. So my children and I flew to Guam for 3 days just to evade the press, which nandun na rin sila sa gate namin sa village. And I think what was hurting is that they were trying to justify my departure by saying that I was favoring certain suppliers, which I told
You don't believe that.
I told my kids.
You reject that.
I told my kids I left DepEd with my pride intact and with integrity, because I have not favored any. I don't even speak to suppliers. If there are petitions or things that has to be settled at Hope level, I go at the middle of DepEd where it's seen by everyone, and that's where I speak to the suppliers.
Last question, ma'am. Sasang-ayon po ba kayo if I would say na yung pagtanggi nyo kay Attorney Reynald Monsayak na pag-usapan na lang yung 2022 continuing fund ang dahilan kung bakit kayo pinagre-resign ni Attorney Zulueta?
That's very speculative, ma'am.
From your point of view, ma'am, it can be right, it can be wrong, but from your point of view,
It could be.
it could be the reason. Dahil tumanggi kayo na pag-usapan ang 2022 continuing fund, posible na ito ang dahilan kung bakit kayo pinag-resign ni Attorney Zulueta. Thank you, ma'am. I submit, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I proceed the interpellation of our witness, I'd just like to pick up on the point that Congresswoman Luistro just mentioned po, no, while she was on that matter of the reasoning perhaps of the request of, is it Usec or Usec Mercado? Usec Mercado. You mentioned po kay Attorney, upon questioning ni Congresswoman Luistro, that it is speculative to say that perhaps the reason that you were asked to step down was because of the request which you rebuffed po, no? But in your affidavit, you mentioned here that the timing of my meeting with Ms. Zulaika struck me as more than coincidental. It gave me the impression that my candid response to Attorney Munsayak's suggestion was the real reason behind the push to relieve me of my office. Of course, Mr. Chair, we understand the predicament that the good Usec is in. It was very difficult to be forthright in times like this with the allegations as heavy as this. But you have to be honest with us, po, Madam Usec, Mr. Chair. At the time, you did feel that there was a relation between the request for you to resign and your refusal to work on the procurement as asked by Attorney Monsayak?
No, not at the time, but because it was happening so fast, Mr. Chair. So I parang it happened so fast. Events happen one at a time. There was so many things to close. I have so much things to move out from so I didn't have the time. But on a hindsight, when it's almost a year from now, many months already, you kind of find that reason na siguro yun yung events, simply because I was getting information from my colleagues that they're saying that I was moved by the Vice President out because I was favoring some suppliers, and it hurt me so much because I have not spoken to any supplier. In fact, there was a supplier which I learned later was sister of our family lawyer, a family doctor, and I did not make a decision on that specific case. I raised it to the office of the Vice President to make the decision, just to make sure that there's no doubt on your decision for certain suppliers. So I made a confidential memorandum to the President, to the Vice President, saying that there are allegations of bribe in this specific case, so I'm raising it to you to validate the issues. So siya yung gumawa ng decision.
So at that point, you would say that you feel then the reason that you were asked to step down was because of the allegations of favoring.
No.
So,
No, not at the time. I think they used it only when I left na. When I left na.
So,
because
which-
they have to justify why I have to leave, you know. Parang masyadong, the reason that was given was a little shallow.
okay. So you believe that the reasoning that you're favoring suppliers is shallow and belated. It was something that they were grasping at a latter time. So right now, when if we ask you, what did you feel is the reason for Attorney Monsec to ask you, for Ms. Zolaika to ask you to step down?
I think it's, I would believe that it's really the work on the procurement side.
So, tama po yung sinabi ni Kong Jinky. She was hinting at that. You just had difficulty saying it.
Yeah,
But
on a hindsight, yes.
In hindsight. And you stand by your affidavit now when you say that it seemed as more than coincidental po, no? That the conversation of your resignation came right after your rebuffing of the, I wouldn't say advances, but the suggestion that you do not intervene with your duties in procurement.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to take up from that point now from Congressman Luistro. But so I'll start now over from your affidavit as a whole. Of course, these are very heavy accusations. This is a very heavy narration. And of course, Chairman Dan Fernandez has already given some insight as to your background. So it really gives us some credibility, an idea of who you are and why you would come out to say this. So with that, we just like to verify, of course. I know you some of these questions were already asked prior, but we'd like to really test the narration. So, Madam Usec, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned that at least 2 or 3 times po, you signed the checks. And this was for the amounts of 37,500,000. And you're sure that this is sourced from the confidential fund. How do we know po that this is...
No, I'm not. I signed checks.
The checks.
Because when you sign checks, there's a document, there's a paper naman that says where the what fund it is.
And you mentioned that you are one of the co-signees.
But only for checks.
For the
We have
checks.
no idea what how the confidential fund is
Of course.
used.
Yes.
Or
I'm limiting my questions purely to the checks. It's
Yes,
that which you have
yes.
personal knowledge. So you mentioned here that you signed checks related to the confidential fund, and there were documents to prove that this is in relation to the confidential
Yes.
fund. Who else were your co-signers po in the check?
Usec Ann.
Usec Ann is here. She is present. Maybe ask si Ms. Chair, we are free to ask other resource persons po naman, no? Because it's as in an inquiry in aid of legislation.
Yes, please continue.
You mentioned that she would give you the envelopes. Would you recall if the envelope had the marking hope po, no? It was
Yes,
labeled as
yes,
hope.
Mr.
Was this
Chair.
typewritten? Was this printed?
No, it's written.
Written. Would the handwriting be familiar?
I'm still keeping those envelopes.
Oh, you still have the envelopes. Mr. Chair, may we request perhaps that these envelopes be produced as object evidence for this committee? So perhaps in a...
The envelope, I think, was already... the content of the envelope was already donated.
Yes.
But with respect to the envelope, you still have it in your possession. Tama po ba?
It's in my home.
Okay, so may we request Usec Mercado to please... dala po ba niyo ngayon?
Hindi po.
Hindi. So siguro in the next scheduled hearing, may we request na pakidala po ninyo para mai-ano po namin.
Meron pang next schedule.
Ma'am, pakilapit lang po ninyo yung microphone para medyo clear at maliwanag po. Thank you po.
So,
Please continue. Please proceed.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that would be very helpful and we'd really appreciate if you could produce that. That would be object evidence po if talagang handwritten po yan and if we're able to prove kung kaninong handwriting. This would just serve to verify po no, the veracity of your narration. So, meron pong envelopes that were labeled Hope. They were not labeled Miss Mercado. They were not labeled Ma'am Gloria po ba? Is that how you go? What is the name that you go by po for people familiar with you?
Glow.
Glo. So it didn't say Dearest Glo. It didn't say Usec
Just
Mercado.
Hope.
Just Hope. Just Hope. Okay, I'll come back to that po at a later time. Going back po to the lunch of, you had the lunch, according to paragraph 6 po, no? You substantiated that your lunch was in Discovery Premier po ba?
I don't recall anymore whether it's Linden or Discovery, but just within those hotels.
And you had that lunch with 2 other colleagues and then
Three.
3 colleagues.
Yeah, one of my directors, Attorney Resty, Ucias, and 2 consultants.
2 consultants. And then si Attorney Monsayak joined you
Joined
at a
us,
later time. Thank you, Chairman Konghun. So yes, I do agree with DS Suarez. As much as we want to hear the timeline, perhaps at a later time, I'll just pursue my line of questioning. I'm sure
Yes, Your Honor.
some of my other colleagues would like to pursue po yung timeline nung resignation.
Yes, Your Honor,
But
Mr.
for
Chair.
the purpose of my interpellation, I'm satisfied with the answer of Usec Mercado that as to her hunch, as to the reasons which she was asked to resign, and as to the timing of which, given the lunch that happened in the Lint Suites. No? I just have one more question lang po siguro, and then I'm going back now in relation to the envelopes that were labeled Hope. You were being questioned for earlier, Usec, Mr. Chair, that about your interpretation of what it meant when you were receiving these envelopes. And you mentioned you narrated in your affidavit that the envelopes were handed to me monthly by Assistant Secretary Sunshine Fajarda, Sunshine, which she says came directly from the office of Vice President Sara Duterte. And you mentioned that you quoted, "Galing kay VP," is what she would typically say as she hands the envelopes. What is your appreciation of that statement? Ano po yung ibig sabihin ng galing kay VP?
Mr. Chair, as I mentioned earlier, it's for me it's kasi meron naman siyang ang appreciation ko, the BP naman has other resources to share. So ganun lang kasimplistic yung tingin ko at first. It was only when I move out already that I give it a hard thought.
Of course, I mean, this is just testing to your personal knowledge. We have no idea, we have no clue kung talagang galing kay VP po yun. All that happens is that it is accompanied by that statement by Usec Sunshine. Correct?
Siguro kaya mo nalilink doon kasi si Usec Sunshine yung nagbibigay.
Because she was Heya at the time.
Yeah.
So you would assume from the Heya's closeness, proximity of both personal relation and by office, that she would have no reason to lie as to the source of that fund. Galing kay VP. But you're right, it could be a valid source, could be not. But I noticed during the interpellation of Congresswoman Luis Toro, you really had an apprehension. You said that bribery was too harsh a word. Could you expound on that thought?
I think it's just not in my language to say it's bribery because I have not experienced it.
And I would tend to agree, Mr. Chair, because generally when you speak of bribery, it's when you are offered a gift, offered a compensation to entice you to do or not to do something that's within your duty. However, that's just the more general term of bribery. No? But we also have the other. We also have indirect bribery. And that's in the case when a person is offered a gift by not for any act to do or not to do, but by mere virtue of your public office. Would that be closer to what you were feeling at the time? Because there was no conversation. Walang sinabi naman po na itong envelope, gawin mo to, wag mong gawin to. But it was simply by virtue of your position. The envelope says it all. Hope.
Yes.
And more colloquially, kilala ang indirect bribery as payola. Did you have an inclination na ito ay payola?
No.
So you said yes to indirect bribery but no to payola. Would you care to explain?
It's those are words that are not in my vocabulary, so if you excuse me.
Of course, I will not belabor po, and I have respect for whatever semantics you choose to prove. But I'm just giving the basis on the envelope only saying hope, and there was no gift or compensation to ask of what to do and what not to do. But it was merely by virtue of your position, it would appear that you're receiving this. One last question po on that. Would you know if other employees of DepEd received the same envelope? And would you know ano po yung nakasulat sa mga envelope po nila?
No. I would know of one, but the rest I don't know.
You know of one more. Would you be at liberty to divulge?
No.
Not the identifying marks, but at least yung level, yung position po niya. Was it the Usec level, Usec level?
Usec level.
Usec level. So there would be confirmation of more than just the hope. Would you know kung ano po yung nakasulat sa envelope na yun?
No, we don't get to see because we're called one by one.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'd like to thank the good Usec for this, for her narration of the affidavit here and being forthright. I'd like to just reiterate our hope that the envelopes will be produced as object evidence for us to discuss, and I'll be yielding to other interpellators who might wish to question. Thank you very much, Usec Mercado, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, continue with your...
Firstly, Mr. Chair, I would just like to say, ma'am, that based on your affidavit and based on the testimonies that you have given, seems like, based on my judgment po, you're someone that really stands by your principles. Someone that has a strong moral compass, given na sa mga pangyayari nga na ito, sa inyong mga binanggit sa inyong affidavit, you mentioned that in paragraph 6 that you were just asserting, you were firmly asserted that the procurement must be implemented and conducted in strict adherence with the rules. And with that, Mr. Chair, kasi nakalagay din po dito sa inyong salaysay, sometime in October 2023, the likelihood of a bidding failure for the DepEd computerization program became apparent. What do you mean by that, ma'am? Paano po naging apparent na mag-failure po yung bidding?
Usec Mercado, you are recognized.
That's kasi a 2022 money. I actually don't get involved in the bidding process because ako yung nagre-review sa taas. But I get feedback from the chair and the other members on what is currently the status of the bidding process, and the report is that it looks like it's going to fail. Only one or two. I don't
Due to
recall
what
anymore.
reasons, ma'am?
Ha?
Sa inyo pong nakuhang impormasyon?
No,
base-
I'm not privy to the reasons because that's a bidding committee function. But it's usually not complying to the standards of the procurement law.
So yung qualifications, etc.,
Yes,
etc.
yes.
So dito rin po kasi sa inyo pong meeting nung lunch po na yon, when you were approached, as you mentioned, by Attorney Munsaya, sabi niyo po kasi dito na mag-uusap-usap na lang para hindi masayang yung 2022 budget. Ano po ba yung interpretation niyo dito?
That's an old money kasi. It's a 2022 money, but it was only bidded in 2023. So, ang very strict yung guidance dyan. It has to be completed yung process and paid by December 2023. So ako yung context ko doon is it's their way of making sure that we would be able to bid out the computers because it was needed in the field.
But ang sa inyo po parang ang dating na to be more lenient on their qualifications. Ano po ba ang pagkakaintindi niyo dito pag-usap-usapan?
Siguro it's more of, telling everyone na, you comply with the requirements and make sure that we push through with the bidding process. But that's not how it should be.
So kasi base po sa inyong impormasyon saka sa inyo po na talagang hindi naman dapat na matuloy ito dahil nga kailangan natin talagang panindigan na sundin yung mga.
And we have an experience of some of our good friends being thrown into a difficult situation because of previous bidding process of computers. So we wanted to make sure that it's not going to happen in our time.
And if I just may ask, ma'am, you mentioned that a certain director was with you, correct?
Reste Ucias. He's also a member of the BAC.
A member of the BAC. Is she still currently a member of the BAC?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ano po ang
Mr. Chair.
nag-usap ba po kayo pagkatapos nito? Kung ano po ang ibig sabihin? Pag-usapan niyo ba po ito nung director?
Ang reaction niya is, bakit niya sinabi yon? I think that was the reaction of the three others who were there.
So all of you guys agree that the statement made was something out of the ordinary na hindi naman po dapat. Okay po. And gusto ko lang pong tanungin din, Mr. Chairman, sabi niyo rin po kasi dito sa paragraph 9 naman, prior to your meeting with Ms. Lopez, six other undersecretaries and assistant secretaries of DepEd were summoned on different occasions by Ms. Zuleika and Attorney Poa and Attorney Fajarda. All for the same purpose of informing them that they should tender their resignation effective on the same day. Sino-sino po ang mga opisyal na ito? Base po sa inyong recollection. Or can you just provide this committee later on, ma'am, kung maalala niyo po? Or do you have
I
any?
can because I'm the HR.
Okay.
I must admit it's a very difficult thing to hear these things kasi HR ka and you don't know anything about them leaving. But they informed me right after they went through that experience. The first one is a Usec and an Asec. I think I should not mention their names.
Okay.
And April 30, they were asked to leave on that same day. We sought we actually sought for reconsideration of one of them because he was a CESB awardee and his CESO 1. So parang it will destroy his career. And then we also sought consideration because if they leave on April 30, they will not be entitled to the mid-year bonus. And I asked that not because of the Usec ASEC, but for the staff. Because all of them have staff, no? So yun yung consideration. The next two, one was also asked to leave, are Usec for legal, and the other one submitted a resignation, supposedly 30 days to take effect, ASEC, to take effect 30 days after, but she was informed that it's going to be effective that day. And then the other one was removed very early on in 2022. And the last one was asked by, Usec POA just relayed the information that the Usec for curriculum and teaching has lost its confidence on one of the assistant secretary. Therefore, she has to leave. But she wanted to ask for consideration to at least 1 week more, but she was asked to leave on that day.
So all of them, none of their requests for an extension were granted, ma'am.
Except for one who was allowed to be sent to the pool of the Career Executive Service Board.
Were they, as far as you know, were they given enough reasons or justification as to why they were asked to resign?
I think it's more of the leadership is not happy with their performance, something like that.
Okay po, Mr. Chair, maraming salamat po, Madam Gloria. Just wanted to clarify that.
Magandang hapon po sa lahat. Mr. Chair, magandang hapon po. Kanina po nasa opisina ko po ako nung naririnig ko po yung testimonya. Nakikinig po ako sa testimony ni Usec Gloria Mercado. Narinig ko po na sinabi niya na nakatanggap siya ng sobrang may laman na pera regularly. At I'm actually disturbed kasi kung sinabi ni Usec Mercado na meron pang isa na nakatanggap at malamang meron pang ibang nakatanggap, I can just imagine if this was done on regular intervals, say monthly, I can just imagine the total amount needed to sustain it over a year. And you know, at 50,000 each, sabihin na lang natin may 20, may 50, tapos merong 12 months, may Christmas pa daw, di ba? Mr. Chair, I can just imagine, and it's quite disturbing, no, for this particular practice, even to use the language, even a small whim of this happening in one of the departments that we hold in high regard, the Department of Education. It's really quite disturbing. But just to give a better picture of how things are at the DepEd, Usec, you were Usec for HR, right? Mr. Chair.
Usec Mercado.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Usec, can you walk us through the process that DepEd followed in the selection of Usecs and ASECs? Kasi I remember at that time there was a heightened attention at hiring at the best and the brightest for DepEd. Would you share with us if there was an emphasis on appointing the most qualified and capable individuals? Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, that's why we all started out inspired, and for once we said that meritocracy is alive in the bureaucracy because we went through a process of applications, being vetted, being in fact background check, and then the final search was a committee that asks specific questions. So if you're applying for a certain position, they will ask you questions around that. So it was, I think there were almost 1,000 or hundreds, I'm not sure, but we were informed that there were so many applicants. It was CES board that made the application, the search, the announcement, and it says if your career and you're smartest and the brightest, you can apply. So we did apply online, and then we received notice for interview, and then after a while we got notice that you are hired as undersecretary for Bureau of Human Resource and Organizational Development. So that's how the process went.
Mr. Chair, is this same process for the other portfolios?
Yes.
Given your experience in government, Mr. Chair, would you say this was something unusual for a government agency to go through this process compared to the other agencies that you worked before?
Yes, that's why I said we were inspired when we started out. In fact, I recall I even posted in my day saying that meritocracy is alive when we were chosen.
So when this string of resignations happened, Mr. Chair, as HR, have you ever, tried to understand why these resignations were happening? Were these resignations ever addressed or seen as a cause for concern within the department?
It was beyond us, I have to admit, as the HROD and the parang nananayan of the Execom, every time someone is sent out, part of me dies off kasi they're also very close to me and they're young. These people are young. I know it will affect their careers. So even if this group tried to band together, they've been inviting me to join them. I could not because I wasn't able to do anything for them as the HROD.
Mr. Chair, would it be fair to say that even if you're using the word resignations, these resignations were in fact de facto dismissals?
Yeah, because they didn't want to, but they have to because pride na rin siguro that they...
And Mr. Chair, the decision to dismiss them was entirely the Vice President's decision as Secretary of Education.
It was the three, it was Usec Sulaika of OBP, then one was si Usec Powa yung inutusan, and then yung isa si Asec Shine.
So you mentioned Usec Sulaika Lopez, the Chief of Staff of the Vice President. And at the time when she talked to this outgoing, dismissed undersecretaries and assistant secretaries, she was not part of the Department of Education, correct?
No.
So her role was really as Chief of Staff to the Vice President.
Yes.
Was this something usual for officials of the Office of the Vice President to intervene or to meddle in affairs of the Department of Education? When she was Secretary of Education, Mr. Chair?
I guess that's the difficult part of the situation kasi you're OBP and at the same time you're Secretary of Education. But it was unusual on my part to hear after they came back from the OBP that they were asked to resign. In fact, the first one, yung sila Usec Chris, we were doing a national screening committee.
Ma'am, Usec, pakilakas po. Medyo hindi
we were
pa
in
rin.
the screening committee and we have to stop because it's like all of us cried, and fortunately there was one of the members of the screening committee was from CES board, and she advised us that Chris should not be resigned because she's CESO 1. So kung pwede siyang pumunta na lang sa pool. So that's why we advised Chris to get the resignation and instead request for the pool.
Mr. Chair, Usec, kanina you mentioned a narrative na some officials were being called at a certain hour and were told that they were being asked to resign or dismissed with the same day, I
Yes.
believe. So, paano yun? May dala na silang resignation nung pinatawag sila? Or how was the process done?
I guess they were asked to submit right there and then.
Right there in front of Usec Sulaika?
I'm not sure if kay Sulaika or sa amin sa DepEd.
But definitely wala silang dalang resignation letter when they were
wala,
called.
because they didn't know that they will have to go.
That they will have to be resigned. So wala ding opportunity, Mr. Chair, Usec, that exit calls were done for transparency and accountability? Was there even a chance that the former Deputy Secretary, the Vice President, would meet with these officials para pa-thank you lang naman for the services rendered?
No exit calls.
No explanation on the part of the Vice President?
Well, it was not explained to the Execom. So that was a very unhealthy precedence kasi parang after that we all ran scared that we might be the next one.
Paano kung seso, Usec, Mr. Chair? Kasi syempre, we have certain rules to follow when it comes to career executive service officers. Was there another process? Was there due
That's
process?
why they have to resign because their career.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Mr. Chair. Kasi ako, right there and then, they will lose their income, their staff will lose all their benefits and salaries, and they were all left in the cold, left in the dark about the circumstances of their termination. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Would you agree, Mr. Chair, Usec, that these decisions appear to be arbitrary or whimsical or even capricious to say?
I'll choose arbitrary.
Would you, you've been, I believe you've been a human resource practitioner for the longest time. Would you believe that this somehow measures up to an abuse of authority or a lack of respect for government officials, especially those in the career service and for established processes in government service?
Maybe it's probably for her it's a decision she has to make, and as to what are the reasons, it's hard to speculate. But it's very inhuman for
I will
the...
supply the word, Mr. Chair. It's quite unprofessional. You would agree?
Yes.
Now,
Or I'd rather use the word
Unprofessional.
inhuman.
Inhuman.
Because you lost your income, di ba? Yung may pamilya ka
Hindi
eh.
lang naman inisip kung may sasaing mamayang gabi, no? Pagka uwi. Mr. Chair, would you know, Usec Mercado, who replaced the outgoing officials?
For the two in administrative services, it was General Menpin and General Baluyan.
So that confirms the two generals on the invitation list serving as Usec and Asec, correct? What specific designations they had again?
They were
Madam Chair,
USEC
Mr.
for
Chair?
administrative services and ASEC for administrative services.
We have so much respect for our men in uniform, Mr. Chair, Usec Mercado, but you think having a general in the Department of Education would be something congruent with the mandate of the agency?
Well, it's a decision that the leadership has opted to take, so we cannot question it.
Now, considering this resignations, replacement of officials, and this, as we say, arbitrary style of dealing with human resource at the Department of Education, how would you characterize the management style of the Vice President when she served as head of your agency?
She has her targets, and I think that's where the disconnect is, because my sense, no, she has her targets, but she's in a different platform because ang orientation niya is local government, while as like policy process takes a longer one, no. Siya has to do it fast. I think she's been going down in the field, so mas nakikita niya yung problema. So she wanted it really, things to go very fast. But the policy process can take a little while, and since these are also human that you have to consider, so you have to explain to her that that's how things work in the policy loop.
Would it be fair to say that she could have been more humane in her dealings with the officials and employees of DepEd?
I think humane is, but probably it's a context of she thinks that since we're the executive committee, we should, level up to what she expected everyone to do.
The executive committee, Mr. Chair, is composed of the
undersecretaries and the assistant secretaries.
How often did the executive committee meet? With the Secretary of Education in person?
I think we had a face-to-face mga few times, but most of our executive committee meetings are online, and usually she joins, but most of the time it's Usec POA who.
It's Usec POA who would
Yes.
preside. So next level of the Usec ASEC would be the regional directors. How often did the Deputy Secretary then had meetings with regional directors?
I'm not. It's a man. There's a because there's an execom and there's a mancom. I'm not very sure. Maybe once. Maybe Usec Rebsi would know because he is the secretariat of the management committee. Usec Rebsi Escobedo is also here.
So, Mr. Chair, Usec law should be once or twice, or how many? Just estimation.
Maybe quarterly.
Quarterly. So she was Deputy
Quarterly
Secretary
with Usec POA.
with Usec POA, but with the Secretary of Education herself.
I'm not very sure with the. But when we were there, she was attending Mancom naman, which was monthly when I was there. But I'm not sure after I left.
So when you were serving at DepEd, she was attending or presiding over meetings with the regional director monthly, every month,
For a certain time.
for a certain time. So, do you believe that that kind of leadership that you had in the Department of Education affected the overall stability and the quality of leadership down the line?
Yes.
Do you think that the particular, you mentioned kanina, parang LGU yung perspective, no? That leadership style would be focused more on, I don't want to use the word, but that's the only way to describe it, partisan political interest rather than the welfare of the institution, the personnel, and ultimately the student that DepEd ought to serve. Do you think that's a safe,
I think
fair assumption, Mr. Chair?
when I say LGU, I think it's more of a fast result than because she really goes down to the ground, to the school level.
But
So
that fast result appears to be would require or sometimes result in a disregard for the career professionals in the department. Don't you think, Mr. Chair?
yeah, sometimes.
Last question, ma'am. At least, Mr. Chair, I would know the Vice President is watching us because she just had a press conference and she said that she's denying giving former DepEd Undersecretary Gloria Mercado 50,000 for 9 months. And the Vice President saying that Mercado was let go because she used DepEd to solicit donations from the private sector amounting to 16 million without her knowledge. And she adds that she will provide the media with paper trail to back up her claim, describing Mercado as a disgruntled former DepEd official. I think, ma'am, given your long history and long service to the Republic, 40 long years, I think it's fair
It's
for you
very
to be given the
sad.
opportunity to reply to the Vice President.
I think I don't want to do this, but since siya na yung nagsabi, i-turn over ko na yung envelope. The envelopes where the money was.
Comsec,
So
Paki-
it's 9 envelopes.
kuha po yung
So
envelope.
it says hope and the amount is there. Kasi ang sakit naman noon, ordinaryo lang akong trabahante tapos inaano ka ng Vice President, di ba? It's very painful.
Ma'am, ilang taon na po kayo? I hope you don't mind. Gusto ko lang pong malaman kasi sabi po ninyo 40 years na po kayo in government.
I'm 65, sir, but I...
So when you were appointed as Usec, noong 2022 ba? 2022? How old were you at
I
that
was 64.
time? 64.
Yeah.
I'm sure sa edad ninyong yan, after pagkatapos nyo pong pag-ingatan yung iyong pangalan for the past 40 years?
Sabutin ko yun. Yes, sir.
So, okay, anyway, thank
Sir,
you.
Mr. Chairman,
I'd like to...
Mr. Chairman,
Sino yun?
Mr. Chairman, dito po ako.
Ay,
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chair, can I continue first?
Congressman, wait, before I recognize Congressman Paduano, ma'am, Yes.
I believe...
With the indulgence of Congressman Asidre, please continue, Congressman.
Mr. Chair, can we allow Usec Mercado to continue with the response? Because I was trying to ask her about the 16 million that the Vice President mentioned.
Please respond with respect to the 16 million. 1660. 16 million.
I would like to respond to that because it's a press con. When I was called for by Usec Sulaika, he said, Usec Mercado, you have to go because one, you have a teacher in your staff. But I explained to them that the teacher was a contract of services when I joined DepEd. And the teacher has a pending application in Cebu because he's from the Visayas. And while he was working with us, he qualified for the RQA. But then when he received his appointment as a teacher, it was already past the opening of the class. It was almost opening, and the teaching load was already apportioned. So I called the RD. I said, can I still keep him? Because he was working on the special hardship allowance, which was a program that BP Sara also wanted to improve because there's a new hardship allowance, and we were just able to reduce the hardship threshold from 0.37 to 0.33. And she wanted the basis for the giving of the hardship allowance, special hardship allowance, revisited. So that's why that guy was the one working on it. So I explained, and I don't feel at all na guilty ako dun sa sinabi niya. The second one is, Sulaika mentioned that I solicited from 2 agencies. So I explained to her that it was a program which our strand developed. There were 2 consultants from UNICEF who developed the app, and then we asked our external partnership office to look for external partners who will be presenting the program, because we developed the concept. It was DepEd Guro. It's her being able to contact the 980,000 teachers. Parang kahit nasan siya, pwede niyang makausap yung mga teachers. The second one was for us to do an electronic mode of the RQA. Parang there's no human intervention anymore. Everyone uploads the credential. Even the computation of the teacher qualification is already on an what do you call this? Wala na siyang human intervention. So that was the program. It wasn't us who choose who would be the partners who will be invited. It was the external partnership. So we made a presentation to almost all the corporations. And then some of the corporations appreciated that it's a very important program. So some of them committed to buy, kasi what we did is we divided the total fund of 16 million into chewable chunks. So if you're interested with this package, ito lang. If you're interested with it, because not everyone naman wanted to pay the 16 million. But there were 2 corporations who were willing to fund, because we wanted to put one in Mindanao, one in Visayas, and one in Luzon. So there were 2 who committed to fund the full package, and those were the 2 corporations that Usec Sulaika said I solicited. So I explained properly. I did not solicit. There's no money involved there. These are equipments. Walang cash po doon. Equipment siya na ito turn over sa DepEd. So I feel very sad that up until now, the BP has not been appraised, as I explained it to her people, that we did not solicit. In fact, the two corporations are willing to give an affidavit that I have no solicitation from them of 16 million.
So to reiterate, Mr. Chair, Usec, first, this was a sanctioned DepEd project.
It's a DepEd project.
Second,
yes.
you did not do the solicitation yourself.
It was managed by the
External
Partnership.
Partnerships Office. Third, no cash donation was ever made.
Equipments.
Equipment was given to the department. So none of this, of what allegations that the Vice President's making against you is true.
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Chair. And
Thank-
that makes it very sad because she's saying it now. Ibig sabihin, her people did not explain to her.
At least I know she's watching, then she'll probably be able to get the information from you now. Thank you, Usec. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Congressman Paduano.
Ano lang po, short interjection with regards to the envelopes that was submitted to this committee. And I just want to put it in record that voluntarily, former Usec Mercado submitted the 9 envelopes, no, sealed, to support his claim, her claim in her affidavit, paragraph 4. Tama po, Usec? Ito yung sa affidavit mo, paragraph 4, no? So, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman,
Mr.
again,
Chair.
just for the record, the 9 envelopes is being submitted voluntarily by Usec Mercado and for this committee to keep it as part of the supporting evidence that was claimed through her affidavit, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you po. The chair would like to recognize the next interpolator, Congressman Suwan.
Mr. Chair.
With the indulgence of Congressman Suwan, please,
Mr. Chair, first,
Kong J. Konghon.
Usec Mercado, pwede po ba kaming makakuha nung copy din ng resibo nung pinagdonatan po natin ng
Opo.
ng pera?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Second, Mr. Chair, I'd like to request, Mr. Chair, the COA for the copy of the rental or lease agreement of the 10 satellite offices and 2 extension offices of the OBP. I so move, Mr. Chair.
There's a motion by the second, duly seconded. Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.